Hey guys, it's Sean from SGTReport.com and the SGT Report YouTube channel here, and we are going to dig deep into what's going on and what has been going on in Las Vegas since the mainstream media simply refuses to do its job. I have back on the line our good friend Dan Dix from pressfortruth.ca, and his excellent YouTube channel is Weaving Spider. If you have not subscribed, please do now. This is a decades-long truth teller here, Dan Dix. Please do support him on Patreon as well. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing very well, man. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, thanks for coming back on again. I know you need support like we all do. YouTube continues to demonetize our most important videos, the ones that cut closest to the truth. So can you tell people about your Patreon page?
Yeah, it's patreon.com/pressfortruth, and obviously for those people who are familiar with Patreon, it's a way you can contribute monthly, and that just goes towards helping me produce daily video content as much as I can, and the odd documentary film whenever I manage to produce one. So, yeah, Patreon's a great way to support independent media.
Yeah, it sure is, and we very much appreciate our patrons. They're making a huge difference for us, and it's keeping us in the game. The other thing I want to say is that, guys, if you haven't subscribed to Dan's YouTube channel, please do it right now. It's Weaving Spider. Yeah, I'll put it right up there with our friends at TrueStream Media and so many other great channels out there doing great work. And in this conversation, Dan, I'm actually going to play a clip, a powerful, powerful clip from our friends Melissa and Aaron at TrueStream Media. But I really want to run down what I think are some of the biggest anomalies as things evolve in this Vegas shooting. And you know what I think is very interesting, Dan? This shooting seems to be bringing almost everyone I can think of in the alt-truth media together. We are all pretty much on the same page here, that we may not know exactly what happened, but we know for 100% sure with our spidey sense and all these facts and all the holes in the official story that the official story cannot possibly be true.
Yeah, absolutely. The more of these facts come out, the more that becomes the truth. That the official story just completely doesn't make sense. There's too many strange anomalies here, and like you said, people are catching on to this. There's a lot of research going on. However, I do think within this movement, as you say, people who are researching this and are starting to question the validity of a potential false flag attack, I think it's really crucial that we separate the differences and we define the terms when dealing with talking about things like false flags versus something like a hoax. And I'm really starting to almost get pissed off with the amount of people who are going down that hoax road immediately after these kinds of events, suggesting that it's all crisis actors and it's fake blood and nobody died and nobody was shot. That's something that I feel is hampering the movement at this time. A false flag, we have to understand what this is it's a military term. This is a military operation where you carry out an attack and you blame the attack on your political enemy. That's what we're talking about here when we deal in false flags. So I think we really need to clear the air here. There's a lot of people kind of muddying the waters in regards to this, suggesting that it didn't happen. I personally think people did die there that day. I've seen some pretty gruesome, gory videos, and I've showed these videos to the people who suggest this didn't happen, and sadly, that's not enough for them. A lot of people see the video and they say, well, yeah, that could still be fake blood and actors, and I don't know if it'll ever be enough for them, but we need to be careful moving forward with how we define what a false flag is, because false flags are very real. They happen all the time. I've been exposing them for almost 11 years now on my channel, and I think the waters are getting muddied right now with this everything's a hoax movement.
Well, I think you make a great point, and I think that what happened here in Vegas, in my opinion, is much more like what happened to JFK with Oswald. Oswald, at least before he was murdered, had the opportunity to say, I'm a patsy. He had the opportunity to at least speak. In this case, Stephen Paddock is dead. Just like at Sandy Hook with Adam Lanza, dead men tell no tales. We see that time and time and time again with these lone gunman shooting events. And you make a great point, guys, because 9/11 was a false flag. Now, others might argue that Sandy Hook was a hoax or a pyramid level event, as Sophia Smallstorm has described it, a DHS or deep state pyramid level event, because we do know, Dan, that the government has now given itself blanket authority to lie to the American people and use propaganda against the American people. I think it was back around 2013 that they dismantled is it the Smith-Mundt Act that prevents them from using propaganda on the homeland against the American people? Now they can do that. So we do need to be very careful and ask ourselves, how much of what we hear is propaganda? I agree with you in this case. I think it is for lack of a better phrase, a false flag, an event that really happened. And people did really die. I do have a second-hand piece of evidence suggesting that it was a real shooting. We have friends in California. This gal, her name is Val, known her for decades, one of my wife's best friends, and she and her husband know somebody who was shot at that event, and they sent us pictures saying the girl was shot, she's in the hospital, she will probably recover. So that's all I know. I mean, that's not proof, but it is a real-world example that I think people did actually get shot. You make a great point. Sorry to blather on like that, but I wonder, what do you think are some of the biggest anomalies, or would you like me to go through my list first, and then we'll just go back and forth?
Sure, we can go back and forth. I mean, you pointed out some of the similarities that this particular event has to past events in regards to the actual shooter. And something that recently came out was this guy was on drugs. He was on something called diazepam, I believe it's called. It's a type of Valium, or maybe actually Valium, and it's used for people who suffer from anxiety, which makes sense. The man was a compulsive gambler. He was constantly gambling. But what a lot of people don't know is that a side effect of this particular drug is aggression. It actually warns the drug warns you that if you tend to side towards being an angry person, this may heighten that. So that's something I think needs to be looked at as well. When you look at the similarities between all the past shooters who do similar things here, a lot of these guys, turns out they're on drugs. And if it turns out to be true in this case, that needs to be seriously looked at.
Well, I agree with you too, and the background of Stephen Paddock needs to be looked at. I mean, why a multimillionaire, I guess, by some accounts, a real estate guru to some extent, I don't know, maybe he's not a guru, but he certainly had some real estate properties, rental properties. Why would this 64-year-old man be compelled to do this? And how, in a facility as secure as a modern-day casino, where they certainly don't want to be robbed, how in the world would this guy get 40-plus guns up to the 32nd floor when there's cameras everywhere? They're watching everybody in the elevators, in the hallways, in the casinos. The eye in the sky doesn't miss much in Las Vegas unless it's paid off to miss something. The ownership of the casino certainly comes into question. I've got a report here today, saw this from JSNIP YouTube channel, and then I looked at the article. MGM Resorts International CEO James Murren sold 294,150 shares of stock on Friday, September 8th, worth $10 million, and then over another week or so, he sold another 8 million. That's 18 million shares of stock he sold just a month before this event. Some of the other anomalies: as soon as the band left the stage, as the shooting began, the crowd lights went up and stayed up, making the crowd visible to the shooters. Later, after the shootings stopped, the crowd lights were turned off, preventing triage. We have reports that the exits were blocked, and we have this report. I want to play this for you. I think it's very important. We have this report that there was a shooter on the ground near Gate 7. Listen to this.
Control, be advised, shots are coming from Gate 7. Gate 7, shots are coming from Gate 7.
Now keep in mind, the exits were blocked and people couldn't get out. It sure seems like this was a setup to me, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, in these kinds of events, obviously it's pandemonium, it's chaos, it's hectic. A lot of the people obviously didn't know which direction was the safe direction to go. If there was allegedly these bullets raining from so far above, it's tough to know where is a safe place to run into. As far as the police officers on the ground, a lot of questions are being raised. There's reports coming out right now that these police officers in yellow jackets, some were seen, one in particular I think at the Bellagio. We're talking about a different casino here, running through the casino. Witnesses claim that around the time that this was going on, this guy running through the Bellagio and being chased by two other guys in also yellow vests, like chasing after one of their own.
If anybody has any questions as far as what they're saying on TV and what is actually going on, here's the proof. We called the police station and we also called the news to let them know. Like I said, I don't know what happened at the other hotels. All I know is what happened here at the Bellagio, because this is where Daniel and I were. And when the shots came firing in through the front door of the lobby and the mass chaos and stampede was when I was under the table and Daniel was on top of me, and until the security came back over and started screaming, "Everybody get to the back."
Which raises a lot of questions about what was going on in the other casinos and in the area with these guys with the yellow vests. But I there's a lot of anomalies coming out that I think can also be debunked, or a lot of valid points raised about them. And we'll go through all of these one by one. I want to see all the ones you have lined up. In regards to how he got the weapons up there, I think that one is fairly easily explainable, just because we know he was staying in the hotel for a number of days. The police tell us he checked in on the 28th. This gives him, 3 whole days to be able to take pieces up there. And as his brother said in interviews, he's a very wealthy man. He doesn't take things up by himself. He would pay a bellboy $100 to throw a heavy piece of luggage onto a cart and wheel it on up there for him. So over the course of 3 days, it's not that inconceivable to imagine how these could have been brought up there. But still, that doesn't, there's still a lot of questions about his physical capabilities of knocking out those windows with the hammer and things like that. So yes, I'm curious to see the other points you have, because there's a lot of people trying to currently debunk these, and we have to be careful that we separate the facts from the fiction as we move forward here.
Right. Well, just a couple of thoughts here on Paddock. His brother says he was not a gun guy. Well, I'm a sort of interested gun guy. I have a couple of firearms, but I've never shot an automatic weapon. I would not have the first clue on how to load and properly shoot that kind of weapon under pressure. So then we have a lot of research suggesting the number of rounds that were shot does not add up with the amount of time the shooting was happening. There had to be a second shooter. We have audio analysis coming across from Mike Adams and others suggesting that there absolutely was 2 weapons being fired at a minimum during this. But I just wanted to say this as it pertains to this guy. If he wasn't a gun guy, why in the world would he bring 40 guns up? If it's him acting alone, what are you going to do with 40 weapons? I mean, certainly 3 would be plenty. 4, 10 would be overkill. So the 40 weapons doesn't add up. But here's the thing. You mentioned a debunking. I want to talk about the flashes coming from the 4th or 5th floor. If you look at the video, and many people now have gone over the video with a fine-tooth comb, you don't see any muzzle flashes coming from the 32nd floor. Now, we do see what a lot of people are describing as a strobe coming from the 4th or 5th floor. We have the taxi driver video showing what she thought was a shooter lower in the building on the 4th or 5th floor. Now, Paul Joseph Watson and others have come out and tried to debunk that, saying, well, there's no broken windows. Okay, now we have End Times News Report Jake over there saying that he has gotten some of the blueprints of the layout. Some of the windows can be opened from within. My position on this would be, look, if it was a well-orchestrated team, certainly a window could be removed and put back in. If it wasn't muzzle flashes, it certainly was a distraction that would keep people, law enforcement, focused on an area that the shooting maybe wasn't coming from. Your thoughts on that big debunking of flashes on the 4th, 5th floor?
Well, it's tough to say what it is, but it is safe to say that it's clearly not the gun that we thought it was, because the video shows that it was flashing in the same manner in the same area at a different time in the evening. Like it was a totally different song being played before this happened. As to why that would be there, I mean, it is Las Vegas. It's the city of the city of sin. There's people partying in every hotel room. There's lots of stuff going on. It's tough to say what that could be, but when these false flag attacks are carried out, there's constantly distractions. ways to divert and confuse and muddy the waters, all of this information. So I'm leaning towards the fact that it doesn't appear that these flashes were actually the gunshots. It looks like it's the same flashing that was occurring earlier in the night. Question is, yes, what are these flashes doing there? Why were they there? But hey, again, it is Las Vegas. It was late in the evening. People are partying. I imagine there's lots of things you would see in hotel windows in that kind of an area at that kind of a time.
Right. But we're not seeing any flashes coming from the 32nd floor, which I do think is interesting and, needs to be addressed. I do want to play another clip for folks now, and stay with us. I think some of the most powerful clips I can possibly play for you guys are coming up. So just stay with us. I should have said that at the beginning of the interview. This is a recording. This is police audio recording, live in the moment of an officer reporting where the shots were coming from at Mandalay Bay. And he does not say the top floor. He does not say 32nd, 33rd floor. He says halfway up.
What's going on, Jimmy? He's coming from upstairs in the Mandalay Bay. Upstairs in Mandalay Bay, halfway up. I see the shots coming from Mandalay Bay. Halfway up. We have an active shooter. We have an active shooter inside the fairgrounds.
And yes, the recording again, another recording from an officer saying that there is a shooter inside the fairgrounds. And then we have this report that a lady who is Hispanic warned the crowd 45 minutes before the concert, "You're all going to die." I'm sure everybody's heard this one by now, but I'll play it real quick.
Yeah, I thought it had a positive correlation to it. Like, obviously, she was telling us that in either to tell us to warn us or to tell us that we were all going to die, and she was part of it. So
okay, Dan, and next I want to play a very important clip from TruthStream Media. They did a video called "Eerie Predictions in Vegas, Cui Bono." That's what we need to ask. Right? Every single time there's an event like this, we need to ask who benefits. That's the number one job of the media and law enforcement, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Key bone is the key question. And as a fan of TruthStream Media myself, I did check out that video, and I thought they did a solid piece. I saw the thread on 4chan by this guy named John, and I was incredibly intrigued and considered doing a video on it myself. And then I saw their video, and I was like, you know what? They pretty much nailed it. They covered everything that I would have wanted to cover. So yeah, that's an important video.
Yeah, I'll play a clip. This is 2 minutes and 20 seconds roughly right now from Eerie Predictions in Vegas, Cui Bono. It's from TruthStream Media, Aaron and Melissa. They're friends of ours, personally of me and Dan, and they are just hitting it out of the park.
This is a thread called, "If Anything Happens Tomorrow, It's Mossad False Flag Level Alpha." And I'm sure every single year on September 11th, you will see a post with the same warning or a similar warning just by default ever since 9/11 on this website. I'm just guessing. But this year, you had some pretty interesting and specific responses that make way too much sense. I was able to carbon date this page back to its creation date, and it was apparently created 23:59:59 on September 10th, 1 second before midnight, September 11th. So somebody had a message they definitely wanted to put out there. And down here in this thread is a post from John. I'm sure that's his real name. He says, "Look, I feel bad for some of you on this website, so I'll let you in on a little secret. If you live in Las Vegas or Henderson, stay inside tomorrow. Don't go anywhere where there are large groups of people. Also, if you see 3 black vans parked next to each other, immediately leave the area. You're welcome." And people started debating what that meant. And he comes back and says, "It's called the High Incident Project. They want to make the American public think that places with extremely high security, like Las Vegas, aren't safe. They're trying to create more regulations. You'll see laws proposed in the next few years to put up more metal detectors and other security devices. Media and politicians will be saying places with lots of police need even more police. I can't guarantee anything will happen tomorrow, but Las Vegas is on their minds." Then he comes back one last time and says, "If their plan is successful, State of Nevada will pass a law in the future making all casinos have mandatory metal detectors and backscatter machines. Soon after, a federal law will be passed to put these machines in universities, high schools, federal buildings, you name it. OSI Systems and Chertoff are the main producers of these machines. Sometime around 2020, Chertoff and OSI will merge into a single company. After they merge, the owners will sell off all their stock and make billions in profit. Mr. Chertoff has been in contact with Sheldon Adelson. Mr. Adelson will become a huge sponsor of these machines, and he will be the first to put them in his casinos when the law passes. This is my last message for now. Don't expect me to return anytime soon.
All right, I'll pause it there. Dan, guys, just bear with me. One last clip to play, and this is about Sheldon Adelson specifically. Dan, just make a note. We're going to circle back and talk about Chertoff, backscatter technology, all the stuff that was rolled out by DHS in the airports after 9/11. And, who's behind all that? Always the same people, right? Guys, this is an interview with Robert Steele from Victrix Libertas. Las Vegas was a Zyocon operation, he says, and it really backs up that 4chan post. Listen to this.
Number one, Las Vegas is absolutely a false flag event. Whether people died or not, this has been concocted by the Zyocons, by the deep state. This is something in which Sheldon Adelson, who owns the casinos in the area where it happened, and Michael Chertoff, the Zionist first director of the Department of Homeland Security, are in a co-conspiracy with others.
Okay, guys, I'm going to turn it back to Dan because there's so much to talk about here. It almost defies belief. It's almost as though Robert Steele is John who wrote that on 4chan. My goodness, I mean, he couldn't have paid it off any better, Dan.
Yeah, I mean that sounds a lot like what John this John guy on 4chan was saying, and I think the important point to make here, what both these guys are saying, is what the end game is here. When you're asking Key Bono, and if this was a false flag, if this was a problem, reaction, solution type event, then we got to look to what is their solution. And guess what? It just so happens to be gun control, and it just so happens to be body scanning machines and metal detectors going not just into airport, hotels and casinos, but stretching this out all over the place. And the only way to be able to achieve that is to have an attack carried out in order to provide the excuse to do so. So we got to remember there is a 1984 Orwellian nightmare endgame here, and in order to bring us into that world, it has to be done incrementally. They know we're not going to just go along with this kind of a tyranny unless it's done incrementally. So that's the important point to take from this mysterious guy who posted this on I think it was the morning of September 11th, and this is only 2-3 weeks ago. So this is very, very intriguing that he specifically mentioned Las Vegas. He warned people to be careful, and he named the companies that were going to potentially benefit, even saying they were going to sell the company in 2020 for billions of dollars. So it raises the question, who is this John guy?
Well, and we should remind listeners who helped roll out the backscatter technology and the scanning machines and the invasive body scanners in the airports right after 9/11, right? It's the same guy who let the dancing Israelis go back to Israel after 9/11, and they went on TV to declare that they were there to record the event. Our goal was to document the event.
The fact of the matter is we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
How do you document the event without having pre-knowledge, right? Chertoff sent those guys back.
Now, in terms of, questioning the people who were there, documenting this event, getting into the minds of these witnesses, you brought up this girl who talked about the person who warned everybody 45 minutes before that this was going to happen, that they're all going to die. Now, this is really important eyewitness testimony because my thoughts on this is, why isn't there anybody else coming forward? I mean, this is probably true. This is probably the case. But, I mean, surely some other people would have experienced this, witnessed this as well, and have seen the viral videos of this girl going around talking about it. So I'm wondering if anybody else from the venue is going to be willing to come forward to corroborate that story, to say, yeah, I can verify what she said. There was a lady running around saying everybody's going to die. But right now, there's only one person who have said that. I'm waiting to see who else in the area is going to come forward and speak out that they also got this prior warning. And there's a number of other points that you brought up too, Sean, that I'd like to touch on. You still with me?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Sorry. So yeah, you went through a few other points that, and I'm not, as somebody who's been exposing false flags for a long time. I'm not trying to debunk things here. I'm just trying to clear some of the waters. And I know that a lot of people saying that the 573 combined people who were wounded and killed could not have possibly come from that many rounds, but I'm not so sure why people are assuming that all of those injuries are coming from the rounds themselves. I mean, I'm not so sure. A lot of those injuries may have been, sprained wrists and ankles and people falling over, people getting trampled. 498 people have already been released from the hospital, I believe is what the police said. So I'd be curious to know how many of those injuries were actually suffered from bullets. Because I think it was John Rappaport who brought up that, and it was an excellent point, but I started thinking, well, we don't know what these injuries were. Maybe it was people getting trampled, falling over, so we have to be careful about that. And when it comes to the potential of this guy to be able to shoot these weapons, I mean, he did live in Las Vegas, and this is a place where you can go and shoot all kinds of these types of guns and get extensive training all on your own, in your own private time. You can go to these places and pay to shoot these guns all you want. So it is conceivable that he was able to do this. Mind you, the man had a frail, weak body. He was an old man. As I said earlier, it doesn't still make sense to me how he could have smashed out those windows and even been able to prop up the guns, even if he had the tripod. So again, I still have a lot of questions about this, but a lot of the things I think there's a logical answer for as well.
No, your points are very important, and I don't think anybody who's doing the research is and I know you agree with this. Nobody's trying to muddy the waters. We're just trying to get to a clear picture of what actually happened, because we know the mainstream media isn't going to evaluate any of these anomalies, and they're certainly not going to report on these anomalies on CNN. So I think, and again, it sort of brings us full circle. I think the alt media, the truth media, we all are on the same page that there's more to the story, right? We know that the end game ultimately would be to destroy the Second Amendment and take the guns from the American people. But in lieu of that, why not roll out technology, invasive Big Brother technology in hotels throughout the country so that the elite oligarchs who victimized us on 9/11 can again profit from an increased police state apparatus in the United States, stripping our liberties in the name of security. It's the oldest joke in the book.
And this should be such an eye-opener and make it so clear to people that the current system of surveillance is clearly not about protecting us. I mean, the NSA, they can listen to your phone calls, they can tap into your, they can read your emails, they can read your text messages. They have supercomputers with powerful algorithms that can recognize these red flags, and it's clearly not used to stop so-called terrorism. It's clearly used to spy on the people who are potentially going to rise up against the government and go against the status quo. That's what the Big Brother Orwellian nightmare surveillance grid is truly all about. So the more people give up their fundamental freedoms, their abilities to protect themselves in America with the Second Amendment, the worse things are going to get. So yes, like you said, we have to remember what the overall end game here is. It's total control over the American people and eventually the whole world.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, we're not going to get to the bottom of this here on this call, guys, but we wanted to share what we thought were some of the most important anomalies, whether we could debunk them or not. But certainly the MGM Resorts International CEO, James Murren, selling 300,000 shares of stock, more than that then, because he ultimately sold $18 million worth of stock just over the past month. What convenient timing. I mean, it's just like the insider trading on 9/11, right? When there were these puts sold against, I think, American Airlines and United, creating, I think, a $7 million windfall profit, ultimately that was never picked up by the winner of that bet, because, of course, that would have left a trail right back. We know that trail led right back to the CIA anyway, I think, if memory serves.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be an important one to follow, too. When doing these investigations, you always got to follow the money. Absolutely. Follow the money. Where did it go? Like you said, all the insider trading during 9/11, absolutely crucial, key to be able to point to who the real shakers, movers, and players are. So yeah, we got to keep a close eye moving forward on these backscatter machines, or whatever they're called, the X-ray scanners, the body detectors, the metal detectors going around here, and the companies involved with these things trading on the market. And yeah, keep a close eye out for these types of these shady trades that may implicate who is actually behind this thing.
Yeah, follow the money. The other thing is this Sheldon Adelson point is a stickler for me. It really needs to be flushed out a little bit further. He's a Las Vegas casino magnate, and he's a billionaire. And in my mind, Dan, I had it that he was closely connected to Hillary and her corruption, but as I'm Googling some articles here, what's really coming up are his donations to Republican super PACs. I think he donated $20 million to a Republican super PAC. He probably plays both sides of the fence. But I swear he was more closely tied to Clinton and that version of the deep state than Trump. Needless to say, I think we need to look further into Sheldon Adelson when we talk about cui bono.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I think more info is going to come out. And now this guy's on everybody's radar. So he better be careful, especially with the insider trading. And that's something I in regards to the surveillance state and the potential trades that are going on. This is something I wanted to talk about too. That's interesting. I noticed you interviewed a guy not too long ago who's involved with a blockchain company called Hive Blockchain. And this is interesting because I've always thought that blockchain technology could potentially go into the direction in the future of completely enslaving humanity and being used by these elitists to control, the Internet of Things and to document everything. But I think we're at that fork in the road where it could actually do that, but it could be also going into a potential area of helping people to get away from these particular oppressors. So that's why I noticed just you a couple of weeks ago interviewed this guy from Hive Blockchain.
Yeah, that's Frank Holmes. He's the chairman of Hive, and he's a gold guy. He previously cut his teeth with a big gold fund for decades and decades. Now he started this new thing, which I think is cool because it gives you access through traditional, like Wall Street means, brokerage accounts, IRAs, to get involved in the crypto space.
Yeah, it's a cool way to be able to get involved, and then there, like we said, we're bringing it into the mainstream. But gold and silver, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest safe havens traditionally. I mean, it always has been. I personally own some gold and some silver. And I've always suggested people kind of, maybe put closer to 80 to 90% of your assets into physical, tangible metals. And maybe if you want to play in the cryptos, go maybe 10, 15% of your assets in the cryptos. But if you are going to do so, Hive is interesting to check out anyways. But yeah, gold and silver is truly where it's at.
Yeah, the thing that I thought was interesting about that Hive thing is simply because I have in one of my IRAs some GBTC, which is a ETF, essentially a over-the-counter tracker of Bitcoin that trades at like double Bitcoin's actual value because it's the only thing the SEC, well, maybe because it's OTC, it didn't even have to get SEC approved, but there are no other ways to play the crypto space through traditional Wall Street vehicles like stocks. So that's what I thought was interesting about it.
Yeah, and hopefully this is going to be able to keep this out of the hands of the people who want to use this system, this technology for controlling us. Just like the NSA is doing, spying on everybody clearly has nothing to do with our safety. We just saw what happened in Las Vegas. They do want to control that more, so we got to make sure it goes into the hands of the right people.
Yeah. The bottom line, though, I do agree with you about gold and silver. I mean, that is one of the safest ways to protect yourself from the storm that's coming economically. And I continue to buy silver, pretty much monthly. And but I think the crypto space is interesting, and I do have a little Bitcoin, some Ethereum, Litecoin, some of these others. I don't think they're all entirely evil. And so my idea is, I'm not going to do anybody good standing in a breadline. So if I can make some money on the cryptos to buy more gold and silver to protect my family, I think that's a win.
Yeah, I would. I'm on the same page with you, brother.
All right, man. Well, I do appreciate your time. Your analysis is always excellent. Your YouTube channel is fantastic, guys. It's Weaving Spider on YouTube. And Dan, shout out the website again for us, will you please?
Sure, it's pressfortruth.ca, and of course everything goes up on my YouTube channel. If you type in Press for Truth, you'll find it. I also put everything up on DTube and Steam it. My account there is Press for Truth. And of course, if you want to chip in, you can do so at patreon.com/pressfortruth or pressfortruth.ca/donate, because we know Patreon is sometimes, even suppressing free speech on that platform. So pressfortruth.ca/donate is a good place to go to. In the face of this adpocalypse, we have to find these other means, and that's why things like BitChute and VidMe and DTube and Steemit and all these alternative sources are popping up, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing too, and there's some beautiful people out there showing some real support for many of us. So my thanks and Dan's thanks to all of you who have stepped up to help us and keep us in this fight for truth. Because, you know, Google, CNN, YouTube, they'd just like us all to shut up and go away. And then Google just give you one answer for every question you have, according to Eric Schmidt. There should only be one right answer, and Google will provide it.
We should be able to give you the right answer just once.
We're here to help combat that and try to keep some sanity here in the world. Dan, thanks so much for your time, buddy.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, guys, check out Dan's website, pressfortruth.ca, and please do check us out for real news 24/7 at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend, guys. Bye-bye.
They're using these events to justify the shift. Never let a good crisis go to waste, even if you have to create that crisis to justify what you want to do next.